Hey, what's going on, my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor and I help people navigate through their ascension process. And today I'm going to share with you some things that you can do if you're feeling in a bit of a funk after this eclipse we just had, or if you're in a funk for any other time. If you're watching this down the line, it's all kind of the same. Oftentimes after a period of rapid transformation, we can be in a bit of an adjustment period, and the way that's experienced, even though that's a good thing, is we feel a bit down, a bit tired, a bit functified, just like not ourselves, not very confident, just kind of like we've been been knocked off our square. Here's the thing that I've learned though, is you can snap yourself out of these funks a lot faster. They tend to have a momentum about them, and one can wallow for an unnecessary amount of time in this state of being. And the point of this video is to hopefully give you some tools to help snap yourself out of it when you feel this way as soon as you can. I was in a big time funk during kind of the day of the eclipse, and then especially afterwards. Like yesterday afternoon, I finally pulled myself out of the funk, so that's why I'm talking about it now. But prior to that, I was totally in a horrible space. I woke up yesterday morning like seriously depressed, like almost like suicidal. Why? What happened, Vic? Nothing. I just woke up and I felt that way. It can happen like that sometimes. The awakening can just shift your state of being around so wildly that it's tough to manage sometimes. But anyway, we're going to talk about how do you snap yourself out of it, because life goes on. We gotta get on with our life, and we can't always be bogged down by the fluctuations of this energetic upgrade we're going through and will likely be going through for some time. So number one is, don't take personal inventory from a place of where everything is bleak and you're depressed and in like the ascension, integration, funk sort of period. You're not seeing things clearly. Everything is going to be severely distorted. And it's common for a lot of self-doubt to creep up during this point, because you know how you feel. You don't feel your best. So the idea that you want to do this and that and change this and move towards this in your life seems from this place, like if I was to always feel this way, it would not get done because I lack the confidence, I lack the connection. But that's a temporary state of being. It's not going to last. But it can really conflict a lot with the perspective you had when you were riding high on that mountain looking at life. When you're feeling connected, you realize, you remember that anything is possible because of that divine connection. It's not just the ego you character who's going to do all the work. It's the unison of you connected with just the divine energy of everything. And with that power, anything's possible. But you temporarily in these funks get severed from that power and actually sort of faced more so with all of your negative emotions that are just conditioned ways of feeling, and yet you're feeling them regardless, so it's irrelevant if they're conditioned or not. You're there. But anyway, to look at your life and make assessments and plans from that perspective, it's unwise. And I recommend just doing your best to be as objective as possible and catch yourself if you find yourself getting real down on yourself and dampening your plans and saying, oh, it's pointless, yada yada. Just know that this is a temporary phase, and you're going to come out of it just fine. In fact, the eventual ramifications of coming out of it is a greater connection than ever before. Number 2 and 3 are going to kind of go together. The way I wrote it, it'd be confusing if I was to separate them. So essentially, the idea I tell all my clients anyways, and something I learned about myself, is that it's a paradox. It's, on one hand, it's very unrealistic to expect you're going to always be riding high. You're never going to get knocked off of your square. At the same time, you want to do your best to not stay down very long. It's so depressing sometimes when you fall off the mountain and you realize how long it took you to climb up there, and how awesome it was from that perspective. And then you wake up and all of a sudden you're at the very bottom, you're in that valley again, and the clouds have rolled in and life sucks all over again for no apparent reason. It's very like, oh my God. So you just want to like give up. It's like, what's the point? If I can fall so fast, this is just, why even try? And sometimes the successes are almost salt on the wound, because now you have that memory of how things were compared to how you are now. And it can really just like, you can spiral so quickly into negative thinking and stew and create an identity of the failure, the one who always is screwed over, the victim, and yada, yada, yada. And then when the natural cycles are kind of completing themselves, and it would be an opportunity to kind of naturally come out of this, you've created such a solidarity about you, the person who has fallen, and you can stay in these funks for a ridiculously long period of time unnecessarily. So on one hand, forgive yourself if you fall and you're not in your best space. Don't judge yourself. Don't think you regress. Don't go into that kind of thing. At the same time, try hard to get yourself out of it quickly. And here's kind of what number 3 is about. It's a way I got out of it yesterday, and something that I believe you could do at any time if you really open yourself up to the possibility, and maybe even this video will help you do it. And that's to somehow remember your power. Remember who you are. When we're in the funk, we forget our power. We feel just like not connected to it. But it's always there. You always are powerful, and sometimes we just forget. So a funny way that I remembered my power yesterday was watching a TV show. I'm a real big fan of this Showtime show called Shameless. Shameless is about a family who lives kind of in poverty. The father is a drug addict and an alcoholic, and just because of their upbringing, this big family of like 5 or 6 kids, all different ages, they weren't really taught how to be normal, productive members of society. And just the way their situation is, they always are dealing with odds against them. They're always sort of a product of their upbringing in a sense. They're always having to fight against that. Sometimes they get a little bit going for them, and then their family, the dysfunction just sucks them back down. So anyways, the message I'm trying to get at here is these people are living in a constant state of extreme adversity, and yet they're so clever and crafty and determined. And these young kids, and some of them are a little bit older, they find ways, even in their situation, to rise up and to like become like a master of their domain, even though they have a much harder time than I do. And just watching their mentality. It's not that I'm recommending the show. I happen to like it, but it's the mentality of these people and how they deal with adversity, how they really think outside of the box and come up with all these like really clever schemes and different ways of bypassing and getting around the obstacles. And that's kind of what it inspired that within myself. Like, yeah, you woke up in a funk, poor baby Victor. So what? You got some tough emotions you're dealing with. Big deal. What are you gonna do about it? You're gonna be a little baby and wallow on the couch, or are you gonna rise up like these people who have it 10 times worse than you, and they seem just fine? So I kind of like took that as like, you know what? Bring it on, emotions. I know some people are even. A lot of people out there saying that the eclipse was like a negative event and there's negative influences. And the way I look at that, for one, I don't read into that, but I look at that as an opportunity to be even tougher. Like, okay, say that is a stage I'm playing on. Good. It gives me a chance to trust myself, to really use my divine power. So anyway, find some way to remember that you're a badass, you're tough. You've been through challenges before and you've overcome them, and you can do it now, and why wait? Number 4, because that wave of motivation is almost always short-lived. One cannot rely on motivation to get things done. Oftentimes, big accomplishments come from a lot of action taken when you're highly unmotivated. And even though I had a resurgence of that memory of my power, I still felt in the funk. I still had the heaviness and the feeling of just like energy was not really in flow for me. It took a lot of willpower, like I was walking against the current. So I did not want to lose that mentality. So what I did is I went and I did other things that will help reinforce it, instead of just rely on that random and fleeting motivation. So one of the things I did last night, it was meditate. I haven't done this before bed in a long time, but I did like a 10-minute quick little mantra meditation before bed. And anyways, I digress. Prior to that, this is something I did. When I was feeling all fueled up, I made a list. I titled the list, "Shit You've Been Putting Off and Now You're Gonna Do" list. I made a real simple list of like 3 or 4 things that I've allowed the energy to kind of like, oh, it's not right for me kind of thing. I was like, no. I made my list, and immediately I started taking action on one of them, the very top and most important one to myself. Anyways, later that night, I meditated. I slept beautifully. I woke up the next day, today, and I meditated again, and I just did a lot of different things to really ensure that the funk is no longer going to affect me. Right now, the energies still feel heavy. It's still kind of a cloudy day, which is a metaphor for the emotions that are surfaced right now in my being. However, I am no longer going to be victim to that, and I have taken my power back. And even in spite of the feeling of heaviness, I feel like I feel productive, which is helping boost my self-esteem, and I feel generally pretty good. And that's kind of the way I've learned to deal with these sorts of ascension these energy hangovers or whatever, is the mindset, and then how you relate with them has a massive influence on how you experience them. Many people allow themselves to be completely swallowed up by them, and their day and week and month is just completely ruined, and they suffer immensely. And I believe a lot of us, we might be subject to the same sort of energetic influence. You can experience it in a vastly different way with the right attitude. And lastly, number 5, I was talking to someone just yesterday who was asking about this. He was like, "Hey Vic, do you ever feel like a resurgence of like bad habits and issues that you thought you kicked, and now like you're like in them again?" So number 5, the whole point is to let it go, and you can always start over that next day. So I explained to him, yeah, I do oftentimes. In fact, many of you realize, if you've been watching me for the past like week or so, I confessed that one of the things that was important to me, I think like I don't know, a couple weeks ago, was to give up my 5-hour energy drink habit, which I only had a few a week randomly. Anyways, yesterday when I was in that funk and I woke up so depressed, I had one, and that just like that like kind of added to it, because I was doing things that made me feel like worse about myself. But I'm not going to dwell on that. I don't care, because that happens all the time. Is relapses. When we're feeling really weak and we're feeling really down, which is very random sometimes on this awakening journey, we can, out of like desperation to feel better, we say, screw it, we just do these things. But it's okay. It's okay to relapse and stuff. At the same time, I'm not what's the word? I'm not above that, and I just keep trying again. I keep starting over. So today it was a new day, and I didn't have it. It wasn't a problem. I woke up, I took charge, I meditated, and I'm not dwelling on that. I'm not judging my character and my performance at life because yesterday I did something that I said I wasn't going to do. Yeah, it wasn't good. I wish maybe in retrospect, I suppose if I was to think about it, I would have wished I would have used a little bit more willpower. But at the time, I was feeling miserable and like super freaking depressed, and it is what it is. So my point is to let this all go. Don't judge yourself based on the effects of the roller coaster of life. There are days when you have a lot of gusto and motivation and you can just perform very well, but that's not every day, obviously. It's how you relate with the bad days, in my opinion, that really makes or breaks who you are as a person and character. But what's important to do is to let go of the guilt, and don't be so hard on yourself if you're like not Johnny on the spot every single day. Anyways, I know that was kind of a lot of different random tips. That's all the different things that have gone through my mind in the last 24 hours in myself, and then talking to other clients and people who are going through this. And I wanted to just share it all with you, because whether you're feeling in a funk now because of the eclipse or not, it doesn't matter. Everyone's different. But I know for myself, I've gone into these like ascension types of blues and downs and lows thousands of times, and all the things I shared with you here, I believe will help you, again, not feel, just pull out of them and snap out of them a lot sooner and get back on your path. So anyways, guys, I will speak to you soon. Have an amazing day. Namaste.